name is Brian Van Groningen. I'm with Van Groningen & Sons Incorporated in Manteca, California. We're in a field site. It's planted to a specialty crop of watermelons. Our farm grows watermelons in San Joaquin County. San Joaquin County in the state of California is the largest producer of watermelons in the state. In this specific region, we produce almost half the amount of watermelons that are grown in California. Our production will reach up to 100 million pounds throughout each year. Throughout the entire growing season, 1 acre will produce as many as 5,000 to 6,000 watermelons. Our watermelon fields are prepared in the fall previous to the planting in the spring. The fields are disked down, they're ripped down the middle of each bed, and then drip lines are installed in the soil about 12 inches below the soil surface. Throughout this entire field, there are raised beds. Our raised beds are 80 inches wide. We plant each transplant at 54 inches apart. Each bed has plastic mulch that's laid down, and in that plastic mulch, it locks in the moisture for the soil. It prevents weeds from attacking the plant and also helps the growth cycle throughout the season. All of our watermelons are grown from a transplant. We purchase seed from the seed dealer and we send it to a nursery. The nursery takes the seed and grows a living plant that's shipped to us. And from that point, we take that living plant and we transplant it into the soil. All of our watermelon acres are planted via transplant. The water wheel transplant machine has a wheel that pokes into the soil that makes the hole for the transplant to be set into. We have people that sit on the back of the planters that carefully place a transplant into the soil. And we're planting both seedless transplants and seeded transplants. A seedless watermelon, even though it's called seedless, has seeds inside of it. The seeds inside of a seedless watermelon are the white, small, immature seeds that you see when you cut open the melon. A seeded melon has black, mature seeds. Those are the big black seeds that people are accustomed to when you eat a watermelon. We need both plants in the ground in each field to help pollinate, to help increase our yield. Following that planting process, we have another set of employees that will place some dirt around the plants to seal in each plant so it doesn't lose its moisture and the roots have a good chance to grow and prosper. After the transplanting is finished, we bring in a sprinkler crew. The sprinkler crews will lay out mainline sprinklers, and at that point, they will be sprinkled to lock in the roots, to help them meld into the soil, and help give the plant a good chance to begin growing immediately after it's planted. It takes approximately 90 days from the time that the transplant is put in the ground to the time that harvest can begin. A transplant that was planted in March will produce fruit in the month of June. A transplant that was planted in the month of June will produce fruit for harvest in the month of September. A watermelon plant is a vine. It continually grows throughout the entire season. The vines will grow as long as 7 to 8 feet long, and on those runners, they will have flowers. They have big, bright yellow female flowers and smaller green male flowers. In order to produce a good crop of watermelons, we need good pollination. To improve pollination, we bring in beehives, and those bees are set out in the field and kept there throughout the whole season. The bees are excellent pollinators as they'll carry pollen from the male flower to the female flower, and then it will form a small marble-sized watermelon. The watermelon stays green color the entire time during its maturation process. The watermelon From the time that it's marble size to the time that it's ready to be harvested takes about 30 days. When each watermelon is harvested, it needs to meet requirements set by the USDA. One of those requirements is sugar content. As we harvest, we cut melons out in the field and test them for bricks, which is a measurement of sugar content inside the watermelon. Once the watermelons reach full maturity, it's time for harvest. At that point, we have specialized, experienced crews that know exactly when the watermelon is ready to be picked. That crew will go through the fields several times throughout the season. A field that's planted in March that begins harvest in June will be harvested as many as 8, 9, or even 10 harvest passes throughout the season. The crew that goes through and cuts the melons are the specialized employees who know exactly when the melon is at its peak of maturity. Once the melons are cut, they're laid over into the furrow, which is the area between the beds. During each harvest pass, the watermelons are loaded onto a conveyor. These conveyors are called wranglers, which have large arms that will lay out that span across each bed. As our harvest crew goes through the field, they pick up each watermelon carefully, place it on the conveyor. The watermelons are conveyed up to the trailers, which they're carefully taken off the conveyor and loaded and stacked into the watermelon trailers. Each harvest trailer will be filled up to capacity, and that is around 25 tons. Our specialty crop of watermelons, not much goes to waste. The good fruit is harvested and sent to our packing shed, and that's sent out to retail stores. The watermelons that aren't quite as high quality, or there's some sort of blemish, or the size is too small or too large, those watermelons are sent to our juicing facility, and those watermelons are used to create watermelon concentrate. Okay, welcome to our packing shed. Trailers that are coming from the field where the watermelons were harvested and put into the trailers. Here at the packing shed, they're unloaded by hand onto our conveyor sorting lines. Some conveyor sorting lines are done all by hand, manually, sized by each employee. Some will be sorted by the computer based off of size and weight. So one of the processes once the watermelons are unloaded onto our packing line is it gets brushed with horsehair brushes. The horsehair brush knocks off any dirt that might be on the melon. It gives it a buffing so the watermelon can have its natural shine. It gets a sticker with our label on it, Yosemite Fresh. And then from that point, it continues down the packing line. It gets sorted by size and shape, and it's determined by a number of count per each cardboard bin. Okay, what we have here is a seedless watermelon. There's many characteristics to choosing a good seedless watermelon. One is the bright yellow spot on its bottom. We refer to this as the sugar spot. Believe it or not, this side of the melon actually lays in the ground. And when the melon becomes ripe, it gets a natural yellow spot on it. And when you're choosing a watermelon, you want to look for the largest yellow sugar spot as possible. Another way that I also determine the seedless watermelon is the opposite side, which is the side that is the top side that faces the sun. It will start to get a little bit of a sunburn, and the green will start to lighten up, and you'll get gold flecks throughout the melon. As you can see here, there's a lot of lightness and gold flecks that are beginning to form. This is a great sign. Another sign is on the stem end where it's cut off the vine. You'll have a little bit of sap, maybe some black oozing that's coming out of the stem. That actually is sugar. We call that sugar sap. You might even see that on the side of the melon. That is another good sign. If you tap it and it feels like an overinflated ball, it has a nice high-pitched sound. It doesn't thud, it's not flat, but it's real high-pitched sound. That tells me that the flesh is very firm inside. So when you cut it, it's gonna be nice and crisp inside. It's gonna be nice and firm. A couple tricks to cutting open a watermelon. The first thing that I do is I cut the melon in the long direction. So I start at the stem end and I cut across the melon in the long direction to its blossom end to get two perfect halves. At that point, when the two halves open up, I usually cut off both the stem end and the blossom end so I have a nice square part of a melon to cut. Then at that point, I take both halves and I cut the halves again in a long way, so now I have wedges. So I should have 4 wedges. And then I line the wedges up long ways and I cut diagonally across into slices. And this melon right here should give at least about 24 nice wedge slices when I'm finished. Watermelons are a very nutritious fruit. They're very high in vitamin C and also lycopene. Lycopene is a natural antioxidant that helps your body fight against diseases.